The identity construct. Okay, my name is Eric. This is my channel. It's now December 28th, 2025. So, what is an identity? Well, identity is who we perceive ourselves to be and who other people perceive us to be based on our actions, right? As we grew up, we emulate people that we really like. If there's somebody very cool on a TV show, we want to be like them. And so our personality becomes a collective demonstration of other people's behaviors. And this is really what identity is. Nobody has an identity. An identity is simply a constant attempt to find oneself, what we are, what we believe in, what we really want to be. And that changes. Every second that passes changes, all right? Each moment that passes changes us. And we can't hold on to anything we have in our lives at any one moment. You can't step twice on the same piece of water. I said it many times. Each time we revisit an issue, we look at it differently. We're a different person, okay? But we want to maintain a general standard, right? Some might say a general kind of a constitution, what we believe in, what our ethics, our morals, our priorities, but we're all hypocrites. And so, this turns out to be just a striving, right, for something that's in a constant state of flux. We're often told that we can't have a utopia. This is mind control. And I don't want to get into who controls us because obviously there are banking interests and business interests that control everything. They control the money supply, the food supply, the oil supply, the narrative, and they make people vote against everything they believe in. And that's what happens when you vote. You vote against everything you believe in. So, it's kind of a crazy thing, but they don't want you to ever think that there's such a thing as a utopia. They want you to think that they've created the perfect environment for you to live in, right? This is the best we can do. Eric Fromm talked about that in his 1958 interview with Mike Wallace. He said that America in 1958 was the best kind of society we had seen. And at the same time, you shouldn't be very impressed with it. The history of humankind isn't much to brag about, right? It's very barbaric. It's awful. And so there are many mysteries here, and I can't get into all of them today. But we must know that our identity is constructed by the government, the people that do govern us, the governance, the authority, right? And our brains are kept in government-issued cages. I've said this many times. So we have to try to understand our behavior. Once again, when we grow up, and we never really grow up, the whole idea here is that we want to be cool. We want to be accepted. That's why people join groups. And I'll get into this. Before I get into the human proclivities here, I want to remind everybody that we just came off of Christmas. Christmas is a time for celebration, and there are also very dark things that happen at Christmas, and it has a very dark side to it. It has an alter ego. Celebration has an alter ego. It brings about conflict, and these conflicts are what they get us to support wars with. But all of these conflicts that people have, let's say you go to a family party or what, they're all based on false belief systems. Everybody's convinced that they're right. And nobody's right. Let's face it, nobody knows everything for sure. I've said it before. History's a pack of lies about events that never happened as they were told by people who were not there. George Santayana, Napoleon Bonaparte. History is lies agreed upon. We could go on and on with this, okay? George Orwell, those who control the past control the future, and those who control the present control the past. Leo Tolstoy, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. It's not, okay? So, we have to understand that this whole imagination of perceived reality, and it's like George Carlin said, always question perceived reality, okay? It's not what we think it is. So Christmas has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. This is simply propaganda. It's nonsense. And I don't want to offend anybody's religious beliefs. There's nothing wrong. Have your beliefs. I'm not here to stop your beliefs. I'm not here to be angry and we are taught to be angry. Our psyche consists of a split between the intellect and the emotion. They prefer to keep us in a state of anger. That's why they use topics like abortion and gun control, which really mean nothing to them. They mean nothing. They're just used to control the human mind. That's all. In essence, there's no difference between a Democrat and a Republican. They have the same basic needs, the same essential needs, and they have totally changed what they were. It used to be those who believed in freedom against those who don't believe in freedom. And right wing meant no freedom. You support monarchies and feudals. That came out of the French Revolution. So this shows you how easy people are to control. They simply shifted Democrats, which were radically for change, and they weren't Democrats at the time. This was, again, this is the left wing, right wing, but they simply shifted. I don't really know when the Democrat-Republican thing began, to tell you the truth, but they shifted it over so that both people are on the same side. They support exactly the same things. It's too funny that people actually believe that they support something different. They both support expansion of war, expansion of Wall Street, erosion of civil liberties, destruction of the working class, and pollution, which is a byproduct of these things. So, you have to understand that all of this is to keep us on the same page, but feel like we're angry at the other side for abortion or gun control or whatever other little ideologies they might construct for us. Okay, so let's go back to Christmas. This is not about the birth of Jesus. If Jesus was born at any time, and it doesn't tell us in the Bible when he was born, it was summertime. All the evidence, and you can check with now, which is our source of information. There's no genuine source of information, but it's AI, right? They talk about the date trees and all of the the foliage and everything that's described in the Bible describes Jesus being born in the summertime. All right. And if there was a Jesus, this is, again, I suspect that Isa or Yeshua or Jesus was a great philosopher and a great person. And again, I don't know, though. None of us know. My friend from the Pentagon always says, we don't know anything for sure, except that we're being lied to continuously. Okay. And that's what this whole construct is. Everything is a construct. Our identity is a construct. And we have to come to terms with that. Christmas is based on a very dark holiday, a dark celebration in Rome. And it's called Saturnalia, and it is based on the worship of the planet Saturn, or the god Saturn, which is represented by the planet Saturn. That's why you see the rings. We have this in Hollywood. These elite cult groups, that are actors and celebrities. They all belong to these cults, and it is dealing with the worship of Saturn. Okay, so this is really different for me. I do tend to assimilate or actually blend some of the things that I've always done with this, but it's a better way to kind of wake people out of this. So I think it's kind of important. With regard to religion, we have these great scriptures. They came out of caves in Qumran. And how many people know where Qumran is? It's in the West Bank. It's in Palestine. Okay. But they didn't all come from Qumran. They came from different places. There have been rabbis and priests that have guarded scriptures that were found long ago. But there's also the Gnostic scriptures that came out of the 1945 excavation in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, that are very important. The Book of Thomas, the Book of Mary Magdalene, the Book of the Egyptians, and many more. Okay. And so all of this is quite important. These are real scriptures, but religion is a construct. The Bible is a construct. It's constructed in a fashion that will control people. All right. So for the few to control the many, they don't only control the money supply, the food supply, and the oil supply, and the narrative, right? Voting is important. If you're voting, you're easy to control. There's no question. And people don't understand that. And I've explained that. I've gone through all of the studies, everything. The evidence is overwhelming that voting is the worst thing a human being can do in the United States of America. All right. So, all right, let's I guess carry on here. So I talked about the innate human proclivities. So let's run through them really quick, and then I'll kind of break them down, right? So you've got greed and lust and hope and fear and nurturing and tribalism and conflict, all right? That's why, like I said, keeping us in conflict makes war seem normal. War is okay. We dehumanize the people we attack. We desensitize the population so that they don't even notice it anymore, that we're dropping bombs on children, right? They don't feel anything. It's just amazing the amount of mind control it really is staggering. There's no question that people accept all of these things, right? So all of this is based on, let's what will we stimuli and response, right? Everything is based on some sort of a slap in the face, right? Slap somebody in the face. It works really well. They slap you back. There's no thinking involved here. This is that split between the intellect and the emotion. Of course, we bypass the intellect. The first thing we do is get angry and slap somebody back. We react that way with everything. These are basically tribal proclivities. Things like greed and lust get us to buy everything, right? Eddie Bernays got women to smoke based on these primal drives, greed and lust. He put women in the 1929 Easter Sunday parade, dressed them very sexy, and had them smoking cigarettes and put up banners, torches of freedom, equality to men, right? Very successful. Control the minds of all the people. We are cattle, all right? And that's the highest rating we get. They call us insects and rodents and cattle, depending on how they feel at the time. So only knowing that he would graduate to consumerism and he would sell all these products on Madison Avenue. And he would take people from having relatively deep, meaningful, and spiritual relationships to rather shallow, superficial, and material relationships. We became different people. We lost our values over time, and this was the goal. Totally controlled the entire population by having them lose their values, their ethics, their morals. I'm not Democrat or Republican, but take a look. Who would vote for Donald Trump? Well, people that are not very happy people, first of all, and they're very angry people. But the same is true with Kamala Harris. I mean, look at Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney was her primary sponsor. Democrats hated Dick Cheney as the devil, the most evil person on earth, and same thing with Bush. And then suddenly they love them, right? Because this is how easy it is to control the human mind and to sway sentiment. It's what Walter Lippmann did. As a matter of fact, before I get to the proclivities, I'm going to run through Lippmann. I told you a little bit about Eddie Bernays and how he changed our values, right? Using material objects, getting people to compete for material things. We had this horrible situation in this country. People were in poverty. They were starving. They were losing limbs because there was no protection for the working class. This is the time, when Donald Trump loved everything. He said, McKinley was a great president. I could go through all the policies. It's awful. But the point is, there were all these protests. We had the founding of the Wobblies Union, people like Eugene Debs, Big Bill Haywood, Joe Hill, Emma Goldman, Lucy Parsons. These are great intellectuals. Writers like Randolph Bourne and Jane Addams. We had Bertrand Russell in Great Britain. Bertrand Russell and Eugene Debs went to prison just for being against the war. But these people were responsible for putting out publications like Appeal to Reason and The Masses. These were real left-wing publications. Everyone should be left-wing if you care about yourself and your freedom. And this is the whole thing. I mean, there's this illusion of left-wing, right-wing. It's totally false. And again, Democrats are right-wing. They're not left-wing. Okay, so the idea here is that, they were revealing, and you can look this up, that, the wars were all for profit. Smedley Butler told us this, and to pursue global hegemony, to take over the world and create a slave race. That is the hope. This is not propaganda. There are documents. There's a subcommittee. Paul Warburg, who signed the Federal Reserve Act on December 23rd of 1913 with Woodrow Wilson. His son, James Paul Warburg, would repeat his mantra, and their name means that, to take over the world by force and consent by the hypnotized people in America who would accept the wars. There's a subcommittee. You can look it up. James Paul Warburg, 1950, he repeated this in front of the Council on Foreign Relations in the U.S. Senate. So I didn't mean to do all of this, but the point is the government stomped out these publications, Appeal to Reason and The Masses, because people were finding out that the wars were all constructed by the bankers. The bankers owned the multinational corporations as well, so they financed both sides in the wars, and they supplied both sides in the wars, right? And Walter Lippmann had a big job, okay? He had to sway the belief systems of all the American people at one time, because the United States needed to enter the war because the banks stood to lose the money that they had lent to Great Britain and to France, huge amounts of money. There were other things here as well, other pretexts for the war, but they finally forced the United States into the war on January 6th of 1917. And so Walter Lippmann had to work quickly. He was the leading intellectual in the United States at the beginning of the 20th century. He won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, okay? He referred to the U.S. citizenry as a bewildered herd. Look this up. A bewildered herd of cattle that needed to be led by the nose on everything we believe. And they certainly used the news for that. They started with Operation Mockingbird. Now, all of this is pure fact, and it's also validated by Congress and the Pike and Church committees in 1975, okay? So this is incredible. What he did is he promised the people who were starving and suffering and having no decent working conditions that the Wobblies Union was trying to help them with, right? He forced them into accepting the wars. And he said that you'll have the highest standard of living you could ever expect. It'll change your life and everyone else's life if you just send your sons and daughters to fight phony wars for business people, okay? And I mean, look up Smedley Butler's 1933 speech and the excerpt for it. Smedley Butler was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history at the time of his death in 1940, okay? He won the Medal of Honor, I think twice as well. It's kind of like Walter Lippmann, right? They both hit it twice. But okay, so I'm getting some information out there, but now I want to get into those proclivities. So yes, they use basically greed and lust to control people on a primal level, right? But all of this is primal in a way. Hope. Look what Obama did with hope and change. He lied about everything. There was no hope. All he did was destroy this country and the Constitution and attack countries and warmonger like nobody did before. It doesn't matter, if you're a Democrat or a Republican. The presidents do the same thing. They work for the same people. The agenda is the same. It's continuity of agenda as Brian, what's that guy's name? Anyway, he's a really good geopolitical guy. But Brian Berletic. But the point here is that I always like to say each predecessor lays the groundwork for his or her successor. These are friends. These are business partners. They all work together. This whole idea of creating this fight like they don't like each other, and that this is all false. And people are so easy to fool. It's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. Okay, that is Mark Twain. It's easy to forgive a small child for being afraid of the dark, but it's much more difficult to forgive an adult for being afraid of the light. That's Plato. And of course, Leonardo da Vinci said there are 3 classes of people: those who see when they are shown, and those who don't see. Unfortunately, these impressions, like I said, this split between the intellect and the emotion is so powerful that it's indelible, okay? Once you can convince people on an emotional level that Putin and Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi and Yasser Arafat and Fidel Castro are all the worst people in the world, which they're not, and they never have been, right? They represent all the people that have committed injustices against you in your entire life, and you hate them. And you believe it. You know nothing. People know nothing. People know far less than nothing about everything in this country. 99.9% of people know far less than nothing about everything. And why do I say that? Well, as William Casey said in 1981 as CIA director, we'll know when our disinformation program is complete, when everything the American public believes is false. Okay? They all say this. Mike Pompeo said it. You can listen to it right now on the internet. CIA lies, cheats, and steals. These are the people who tell you who the enemy is. Ben Franklin. War is when a government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you can figure it out for yourself. Okay? So we can see they don't want us to believe in utopia because they don't want us to create a better country. And that would happen through the First Amendment. It happens in China, in Russia. They have more democracy than we do, and that study came out of Denmark. Okay? They have community consensus. People get together, they discuss what they want, they submit their will to the government, and the government responds. The government does the opposite out here. Look at the homeless people. We're going downhill fast. And look at the transfer of wealth from the middle class and the poor. I mean, again, nobody ever mentions the poor. That's another form of mind control, right? Just like they only mention women and children when they talk about getting bombed. What about the men? These are all innocent people, right? But it's all part of mind control. They get you to state it that way every time, all right? So, all right, let's talk about the rest of the proclivity. So I got the hope, right? Okay, we talked about greed and lust and hope. And then there's fear. I took a vaccine, even though I'm against vaccines. I wouldn't be against vaccines if I thought they were good and they wanted them to be good. We're being experimented on. We're test animals. And I will explain that to you as we go along. Let me just say I took a vaccine out of fear. Okay, I cut my hand in the garden. I was afraid of lockjaw, even though if you've got a strong immune system, you're probably not going to get lockjaw. Okay, but I took it anyway. All right. So in 1911, we had the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Germany. They were euthanizing children that weren't perfect. They were sterilizing people of color because they didn't want them to reproduce. And they were continuing to fund eugenics programs because they wanted to create perfect human beings. Now, this never went anyplace. Kaiser Permanente, Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, okay? It then became Max Planck Institute. Max Planck was a reputed physicist who denied that he was a Nazi, but they still own today all the most important academic and scientific institutions in the world, okay? And if they're not in Germany, they're somewhere else and they're subsidiaries of them, okay? It's just centralized control. So that's what's going on. And so the vaccines are not good. And an mRNA vaccine, an experimental vaccine, which is what it wasn't even a vaccine. It was called a countermeasure by the military. Military controlled and ran all of this because all of the military, look, the Spanish flu didn't come from Spain. We know that as a fact. The only reason it was called the Spanish flu was because Spain was neutral in World War I, and they were allowed to say whatever they wanted to, and they pretty much put the information out there that this flu was going around. Everybody else denied it because they didn't want the soldiers to be afraid to fight in the war. This was still toward the end of World War I, right? So the first cases were reported at Cap Funston. All right, it's at Fort Riley in Kansas. Look it up. Okay, where were the first cases of the Spanish flu? That's where they were. They always come off of military bases. They were developing vaccines there too. Then they claim that they were for meningitis. This is not true. This is just like what we had from, Fort Detrick. That's where it's certainly where the virus came from, the coronavirus, right? It's not from Wuhan, but whatever people believe. I mean, I'm convinced because the evidence to me is overwhelming. Okay, so, but the point is, we've been experimented on. We are test subjects. This whole business of I was going to say cloud seeding. They control the weather too. Look at Congress's acts. The Weather Modification Act of 1967, 1976. This was all to prevent the military from utilizing weather modification in war, which they were doing in the Vietnam War. They were washing out roads and rivers in order to impede transport of goods. And so all of this is just fact, guys. It's 100% fact. Okay, so let's take a look at what they were doing with experimenting on us. Again, all just like MK Ultra and Operation Mockingbird, validated by Congress in 1975 through the Pike and Church committees. All right. In the 1950s, we had Operation Sea Spray, we had Operation LAC, LAC, Operation DEW, DEW, that were dumping huge aerosol clouds of pathogens over heavily populated cities in America. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, off the coast, same thing off California, even into Canada. They were all trying to see what type of conditions we would develop from exposure to these horrible pathogens, right? This is all official. The documents are available online, okay? So I'm trying to get the point across here that people are believing nonsense. And again, think about the face slap, how we're going to react, right? So I'm going to go back to the proclivities for a minute. I want to finish up on those and then we'll go back to the face slap, but they're all connected here. So, okay, so we went from hope and then we went to fear. And I talked about how I took that tetanus vaccine because I was afraid. Okay, that's what they do. They control our minds, even mine. It doesn't matter how much you know. We're still human beings. Okay, nurturing, very, very important. They take over your mind even more when you think you're liberated from your parents. When children are growing up, the parents have to protect the children. They have to make sure they don't run out into the road and get hit by a bus. They have to make sure that they have good values. And so, but all of this is an impedance as well. It works against them. When you go to the museum and you see the parents grabbing their kids and stopping them, it means, hey, you can't be curious, and you're going to be punished for being curious. And that's what happens, right? So it's good and bad in everything. But the point is, when you finally leave home, you have to remember your parents are your providers. They provide food. They provide safety. They provide all the things that you need, toys, things that entertain you. Well, that's what the government does, okay? Now they want you to think that they provide the food. They provide your safety. They're telling you the truth. They give you the right narrative for everything. They give you the toys. They give you the cars and trucks and all the things you want to play with, bows and arrows and guns, all right? So this is who is now the master, the government. All right, that's nurturing, and that's part of tribalism. Now, tribalism is being a Democrat or a Republican or belonging to a group. People aren't afraid to be lost as long as they're not lost alone. All right, leave somebody in the wilderness, you, me, any one of us, we're scared to death if we're all alone. If we have 5 or 10 people with us, we feel better. If we have 100 people, we're all lost, we feel better. We have more resources. We have more security because we're programmed through tribalism, which is very primal. We've done this throughout history. We always needed to be in tribes to protect each other. You can't do it all alone, right? But also, people want love. And they exploit us these are all exploitations. They exploit us because people want love, all right? They're willing to give up all their ethics, all their morals, like I told you about the Democrats with, Kamala Harris and Dick Cheney. And, there's no morals or ethics involved. They think they do. They espouse things, just like the Republicans, who espouse that they're religious and they have good morals, but they blame the poor for stealing their money. And just like both parties blame other countries who are the victims of imperialism, colonialism, and capitalism, they blame the other countries, the people that are being attacked. And that's how it works. That's a total control of the human mind and the identity of human beings. Okay, so they do that with conflict, as I said as well. So take a look at the slap in the face, the reactions. Look, if you're against even just the mRNA vaccine, which is again experimental, warp speed, it usually takes 5 to 10 years. You're a Trumper. All right. This is crazy. This Trump derangement syndrome. I don't like Trump. I can't stand him. I think he's an asshole. A terrible person. They all are. All right. But the fact is, I don't discriminate. I see reality. I do see reality here. I can be fooled, just like taking a vaccine. Fear can make me do things because I just don't know, right? For sure, sometimes you think if there's any doubt, maybe I should do it to be safe, right? So nobody's perfect. But the point is, I would never vote. I would never believe that there's a better president or politician. Chomsky said it very well. They have the equivalent of a publicist and a promoter. They don't believe in anything they say. This is a business, okay? So, and it's owned by the bankers and the business corporate owners that run all the wars. So, all right, you're a Trumper. You're a Putin puppet. If you say anything that goes against the government narrative, you're a Putin puppet. If you're against genocide, think about that. If you're against genocide, you support Hamas. Now, we shouldn't even be judging who Hamas is. We're being lied to about everything. So, this is just stupid. But everybody, see, anything you say is an emotional reaction. Conspiracy theorist, again, this was post-Warren Commission. This was developed by the CIA. They have been doing this type of crowd control for millennia, okay? But they gave it a name, conspiracy theorist, conspiracy theory. They did this because Jim Garrison, who was district attorney in New Orleans, was not letting go of the fact that obviously JFK was assassinated by the CIA, okay? So they had to do something to smear him, and that's what they did. And they smear all people that way. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a commie. You're a subversive. All of this works, and it creates a reaction in people like the slap in the face does, okay? So understand your own behavior. That's all I'm asking. Understand how controlled we all are, All right. And so I don't want to, there's no way I can put myself aside and say, well, I'm immune to everything. But I can teach people how to be themselves and how to find an identity and how to realize how we're being lied to. So that's it. I probably spoke too quickly as always, but I'm going to wrap it up right there. I went 30 minutes. It's probably too much. I wanted to keep it short. But yeah, I hope everybody who could listen to this, and I don't promote it. It's for people that friends or people I might want to give it to. Not usually friends. Very rare I'll give this to anyone. But anyway, have a great day, everyone.